Hi everyone, we're live from Adel, Georgia, believe it or not. Out of all the places in the world for immigration updates, Adel, Georgia, today. Okay, so my name is Elizabeth Mathern. I am doing the Facebook Live for Kuck, Baxter Immigration today. Welcome everyone, thank you for joining. I'll give people a few minutes to join. I am having some technical difficulties with my computer today, so I won't be able to flash all of those cool little tickers and with my phone number and stuff like that. So we'll just make do with mobile. Hopefully the strength of the signal is also going to be good enough. Today I'm going to talk about what's going on in immigration. I'm going to specifically address the new ICE Priorities Memo, which I'm gonna kind of do off of memory because I'm only using my phone today. And of course, I'll answer your questions live. We'll do as best as we can to sort of juggle with mobile to answer your questions, to read your questions and answer them. Just by way of a little bit of information, again, my name is Elizabeth Mathern with Kuck, Baxter Immigration. I work in our South Georgia office, which is right down I-75. If you are anywhere in North Georgia or South Florida, I'm probably just a stone's throw away from you. If you guys get those bubbles going and like and share, that's awesome. It'll get more people, let more people know that we're even on today. And feel free to post, you know, where you're watching from and stuff like that. If you would like to talk with me or any of our attorneys regarding the specifics of your case, you're welcome to set an initial consultation. That is a couple of fancy words for saying just an appointment, a time that we can sit together through phone or Zoom or even in person these days to talk about the specifics of your case, look at your documents, see what's really been going on, and give you some sort of advice. Do you think Chuck's my brother? I think we must be long lost relatives because we do have some similarities. We both have, I think, some German ancestry, and yeah, we could be related for sure. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you, Hassan. Glad you're watching today. All right, so folks, let's see. It doesn't look very hopeful that the immigration reform package is going to happen. Reconciliation seems to have just stalled. Yeah, doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. I mean, now they've moved on to squabbling over the debt ceiling, which should be a no-brainer, but it's just more political fodder. So unfortunately, it's not looking good for immigration reform. And I don't have very much updates regarding that. We've had our firm has been involved in a couple of really great litigation wins recently. Check out the Impact Litigation YouTube channel and updates for those cases. Diversity Visa got a big victory. 2021 got a big victory. I think we're still waiting for that alleged guidance from Department of State to post to see how they're going to implement. They are basically telling people to just wait. So frustrating there from what I'm seeing on the cases that we've got on the consular processing side of things. And then we've got a new priorities memo. So what is a priorities memo? What does it mean? What does it apply to? When does it go into effect? All of those things I think I'm going to try to cover now. Feel free to post questions. I think I'll be able to see them, and feel free to send your little bubbles up, your likes. And I mean, sometimes I get mad faces. That's okay. I can do with mad faces. But any other questions or comments you have, feel free to post them. My number is 229-472-5775. That's the number for the Adel office. You can also go online and on the Facebook page, you can click to book. You can also follow my professional Facebook page, which is immigration. I think it's Elizabeth Mathern, immigration attorney. You might find some local updates there. All right, so last week, Secretary Mayorkas issued a priorities memo that basically like rescinded and replaced previous priority memos. And it is an interesting memo. I think that most people are saying it's a big nothing burger. Like it's not earth shattering. It's nothing, the structure and the things that it's saying is nothing really off course or new from what we've seen in the past. Some of the language at the beginning talks about how there are an estimate of 11 million undocumented people in the country, and that there's limited resources and the government can only take action on so many cases, right? Like, so resources have to be allocated according to priority. So the government can't just run around taking anybody and everybody that, you know, they come in contact with or create forced or violative sort of interactions in order to get people in removal proceedings and things like that. What that does is create like a high enforcement tone, and also clogs up the works, right? Like if you just flood the system with all sorts of cases and cases that, you know, someone who has been here for a really long time, has no criminal history, is eligible for some way to stay here, but they're just waiting for their paperwork to process. Why clog up and create more of a backlog than we already have, right? It's an inefficient use of resources. So this priority list purports to talk about how the government, which it's supposed to include the authority for the government to arrest, detain, put into proceedings, execute removal orders. So under that umbrella is both ICE officers and, I think, DHS attorneys, the government ICE attorneys. We also call them Office of Chief Counsel or OCC. You may hear us also say like a trial attorney or a TA. Those are all the same words for deportation prosecutors. So the highest priority, according to this list, and it does seem like they're ranked in order of priority, the highest priority is anyone who is a threat to national security. That would be like espionage, things like that. I guess like terrorism, maybe, but obviously it doesn't include domestic terrorism. So national security. Then the next layer of prioritization is going to be public safety. Under that is where you're going to, it's going to be a little bit nebulous and sort of hard to nail down because there's a level of discretion in what is public safety and who is a danger to public safety, right? So somebody with a parking ticket, are they a danger to public safety? Some people might say yes, because they didn't, they're willing to violate a parking law. They might be willing to violate any law. So, you know, that can be a little bit more subject to interpretation. And then we're going to talk about the mitigating factors and the mitigating factors in a second. But the next level would be border security. So it seems like under public safety, the priorities is trying to draw a hard line on not sort of saying that people who attempt to enter the border not at certain places are going to be more likely to be subject to enforcement. So I kind of have a little bit of a problem with that, right? Like it's totally within the treaties and laws that we have that you can enter in the United States for the purpose of seeking asylum and file for asylum. That's legal, that's lawful. You cannot file for asylum outside the United States. So you have to enter. And when you're entering with the purpose of filing for asylum, you're not, necessarily like entering just to violate a law or just to be here. You're entering in order to file for an application, which you're entitled to do. So, all right. I think we've got some questions. Let me try to scan because this is my mobile. So let's see what we can do. I saw Hassan's comment again about Chuck and I being brother and sister. Okay, is there any chance that Go plaintiffs get to something after 2 months? Abishkar, I'm trying to figure out what you're asking. I think Go plaintiffs just need to hang on. Just hang on. It's looking like things are going in the right direction. It's a pretty momentous victory for y'all. I'm waiting for a date for my interview in Albania. Can I file for the 212-601 waiver now? Let me know. All right, Ermal, you can file your waivers in advance. Sometimes people want to wait until they have their interview and all the inadmissibility bars are assessed by the consulate, and then you're able to respond if you aren't quite sure what all they're going to try to hold against you. So I would need a little bit more information about what you're trying to waive, what all you're trying to waive, what kind of petition it is, that kind of stuff, before I just advise you on taking a step and start filing things. The waivers are expensive, so we might want to strategize a little bit before just giving you off-the-cuff advice on that. Updates for DV 2020. Hassan, I don't have any updates on the litigation or diversity visa. Those, watch on Wednesdays when Mr. Kuck does his update, and then also look for the impact litigation updates, which are usually Monday night on the YouTube channel. Thoughts on, Osama's asking thoughts on DV 2022. I think it'll follow suit. I'm hopeful. I mean, the most recent litigation decision saying that the travel bans were unconstitutional, I think gives us a really good, I don't know, sort of beacon of hope that the government's going to be held accountable for all this inefficiency and just like intentional sort of harming of people's cases and lives. So I'm hopeful. So keep hanging in there. DV 2023 is, I think, right, either opened or it's about to open for registration. So all of you who have just learned about DV, Diversity Lotto is what we're talking about, Diversity Visa Lottery, which is just for people who are watching who don't know what that is. A lot of you already know what that is, and it's a wonderful program that allows countries that have low immigration rates to the United States to their countrymen or people that are citizens of those countries to apply for an opportunity to be selected in a lottery. And there are certain qualifications, like certain type levels of education, things like that, no criminal history, and you can bring family members with you, immediate family members like spouses and children, if you are selected. The problem with the diversity visa is that it's a very short window of time that you can process that visa. So people are selected in a lottery, they have to get all their paperwork in, they have to pass the documents portion and all of that, and then go to an interview for that last level of review. Things got all messed up with COVID and former President Trump trying to do away with the diversity visa program altogether. So it's still alive, it's still kicking. I think that we will see it back on track for 2023. Fingers crossed. As we say down here, and if the creek don't rise, God willing, and the creek don't rise. So just, yeah, keep the faith, keep the hope. All right, let's see. I think that's all the questions for right now. So I'm going to go back to talking about the ICE priority memo. So feel free to post questions and comments if you have any, all right, while I'm talking about the priority memo. So when does the priority memo go into effect? It's supposed to go into effect 60 days after its issuance, which would be November 29th. What does it mean in practicality? So the priority memo is going to give officers, for example, if someone is arrested for like a no driver's license and taken into their local police department. A lot of times ICE may run like records to see if someone that's in a jail has any status in the United States. Maybe if this is their first offense, or they have no other criminal history, or they have other mitigating factors. In this list of mitigating factors, it included things like mental illness, or other types of illness, or mitigating factors. What was going on at the time? Was the person a victim of a crime, or a victim of abuse? A lot of times we would see, or we can see, someone who has been the victim of abuse, maybe as a foreign national with no status in the U.S., attempts to call the police for protection, maybe from someone who is an abuser who has status, maybe as a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident. Maybe the foreign national doesn't speak English, or doesn't speak English well. Maybe the officer doesn't speak the foreign national's native language. Or maybe everybody speaks English, but the abuser who has status is able to convince the police that the victim is actually the perpetrator. So that happens quite often, where someone will call the police for protection and they end up getting arrested, either because they have no status, or because they were not able to communicate clearly with the officer. So maybe that would be taken into consideration. Also, I saw how long ago a criminal charge took place, and whether or not the conviction was vacated. So vacating a conviction is still something that is worth looking into if you have a really old crime. I think that the priority memo doesn't give us anything really all that new. I feel like it takes us kind of back to where we were under Obama in a way, where there's room for attorneys to kind of make certain arguments, pull out facts, give mitigating documentation to an ICE officer, maybe try to get someone not even put in proceedings, or released from maybe a local jail without an ICE detainer, things like that, which is not, earth-shattering, but it is a big deal for someone who might otherwise have to be in a position of fighting their removal case, or, having to go to court, all of that. So the place where we sort of aren't that optimistic is that we still are seeing some level of a pretty intense enforcement perspective. So it does give us things to argue. It lists out things that ICE officers can look at, and it lists out factors that should be considered, but you've still got that human element of who is going to be reviewing it. Now, would I rather some sort of robot algorithm, or would I rather a human being to evaluate something like this, related to someone's life, and someone who is an actual human being with flaws and mistakes and loved ones and triumphs and disappointments? I think I'd rather a human being, but I try to keep keep hope alive. So I think, the main takeaway for the priorities memo is, here we go again. We've got room to work. We've got room to argue. And should you find yourself in, some sort of position where ICE may be evaluating whether or not to put a detainer on you, whether or not to put you in proceedings, whether or not to arrest you, or even to execute a removal order, I think it's a good idea to reach out to an attorney who can help you sort of make that case, reviewing all the factors, gathering all the documentation for why your situation should be given that extra consideration. Sometimes you may have a removal order, maybe really, really old, and you don't think that there's anything that can be done. But sometimes there can be something that can be done. Maybe the removal order can be reopened. Maybe you can file a waiver. Don't think all hope is lost. And with the new priority memo, it's not just straight out, these people are just taken off the list altogether, but it does provide some sort of structure for evaluators and attorneys to have a structure in which to work and argue and sort of evaluate and fight for you. So I think overall, I think it's a good thing. Anytime you create some sort of an organization of how to evaluate cases rather than just dumping everybody into the system or just dumping cases into the system and creating these awful backlogs, I think you're going to have somewhat of a more humane system that's protecting people's rights. The immigration court system is so messed up that I can't say that with any level of certainty. This certainly isn't a fix, but it's something, right? So we will use it to work with it as best we can. I know that prosecutorial discretion is still being used in immigration court. We're still able to get continuances sometimes for us to file requests for prosecutorial discretion. That mainly means for a lot of people that their case would just be dismissed, which some people, has major ramifications. Maybe you won't get your work permit anymore if you're not in proceedings with a pending case. So it may not be right for everyone, but it is something to consider and to discuss with your attorney. So let me see. Mohammed asked the question. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I'm going to have to focus. Okay, Mohammed says he's been waiting for 8 months and he has not received a decision on an I-485. Okay, Mohammed, I don't have the case processing timelines in front of me, but I think it was last week I talked about the USCIS backlogs and how the Government Accountability Office issued a report that was pretty, scathing government, as far as government reports go, saying that the USCIS had not identified ways that they could make things move faster, that COVID had created backlogs, also mismanagement, or I don't think they said mismanagement, but I'll use that word, mismanagement of the system, the processing system, not having enough workers, increasing the number of pages. As you know, the I-485 has gone up to, it's like 22 pages or something crazy now, which takes longer for someone to review. And that report said that in the last 4 years, that the case processing timelines went up 54 or 56%. So yeah, Mohammed, I think you're probably still within the normal case processing, like what they're reporting as case processing time. What you can do, and I think I posted it on my last Facebook Live, you can go to the USCIS website for processing times, put in the application, put in the processing center, and see what USCIS is reporting, as the average processing time. If you're outside of that processing time, you can do an inquiry through the 800 number and ask them to speed it up. If you get much further outside of that, you may be able to do some sort of federal court action to force the government to do the thing they're already supposed to do, which is to adjudicate your application. So that sometimes is a good strategy if we just want an answer, because remember, if you force them to answer, they could approve or deny it. So sometimes you want to make sure that you're using that on either cases that you feel really, really certain about, or where you just need an answer to move on to the next step in your life. All right, let's see. Alexis has a question. Is there anywhere we could check on which category of immigration visas will be open or will be opened up? We're EB3 in South Africa pending interview. So I think, Alexis, that your question could be covered by the Visa Bulletin. The Visa Bulletin is issued every month. If you Google Visa Bulletin in October, you should be able to find the most up-to-date information. And then you'll scroll down to the chart. You'll see some countries are listed. Those are countries that have a higher level of immigration, like where more people come from those countries, and so they have a longer waiting list because of country caps. If your country of origin is not one of those, then you would be under the other column, which is just all other. So that's where you can find that information, and that may not be what you're asking me. What that tells you is when is your priority date current, or how quickly are they processing those applications. Your pending interview, yeah, so I don't know. I guess you've already been approved. No, you're just waiting for an interview. So yeah, I check the Visa Bulletin and see if that's any help at all. I think you can also probably use the case processing guidance that I was just talking about on the USCIS website. See if that helps. All right, folks. Well, okay. Alexis says it does say current, but absolutely no interviews. Yeah, I think this is just carryover from the COVID backlogs, all of that mess. And I don't know that that's going to speed up anytime soon. We did hear, right, that USCIS is going to get $250 million, I think, to hire more work, do these things that they need to do to address these backlogs, right? Hire more workers. It would be really great if they had a streamlined e-filing system that actually worked and was like from 2021 instead of 1989, and that it was functional and worked well. That doesn't seem like a quick fix to me. Like, that's not going to happen in the next year. So we've got to just bank on COVID, going away in most of the world, these backlogs sort of getting some traction and some snowball. But yeah, I think EBs, I don't think that they're at the top of what we heard recently was announced by the Biden administration as their priorities for consular processing. So just hang in there. I'm really sorry that it's you're in this situation, but let's hope that things are going to start working better soon. All right. You're very welcome, Alexis. Okay, folks. Well, I better run, get back to work. It was really nice being with you today. I enjoy my Thursdays with you. Let's see. Abid, sorry, I'm having trouble with my eyes. It's so tiny. Are you and your team willing to challenge the prioritization used in the embassies? I don't know. We can talk to Mr. Kuck about it. I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, and potentially it's in a way discriminatory. I don't know. And anything they do is going to harm certain segments, you know? I don't know that there's ever like a perfect way to prioritize, but I mean, possibly. We're always willing to look into litigation. So feel free to follow up on that with us, okay? All right. Well, I better run. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. See? Bye.